Hello folks, welcome back to W Club Decanted. Luke Crowley Holland here. In this episode we pay a visit to the Luss Distillery, brand home of Loch Lomond Whisky and Ben Lomond Gin. It's a two-parter, so don't switch off when you hear the music again. The first part is with Head of Marketing Aly Bayne. The second part is with brand home manager Tony MacLean. If you can, we do highly recommend visiting the Luss Distillery, an absolutely fantastic experience, and the surrounding area is absolutely stunning and cannot recommend enough. For all things Loch Lomond though, please do visit your local whisky shop or thewhiskyshop.com. The only thing left to do then is enjoy the show.
Marvellous. So, Aly, thank you so much for coming on the W Club Decanted podcast. Before we dive right into it, do you want to maybe tell our listeners a bit about yourself? You're head of marketing at Loch Lomond?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for coming. Thanks for coming to visit us. It's a cold January morning. Hopefully you'll get a nice day out of it. The Loch Lomond Group's my first foray into spirits. So I've been here for about 5 years, and I head up the marketing for kind of vodka, gin, champagne, RTDs, and as we sometimes loosely term it, everything that's not whiskey. And they'll come into how that got to Luss in the end. Prior to that, I was a beer guy mostly, so kind of worked for a variety of breweries around the country, and a wee bit through Europe and that side of it as well. And prior to that, I was a bars and restaurants guy for a wee bit, which gave me that kind of love of hospitality and experiences that I think has come full circle into Luss now.
Marvellous. So when you decided as a company to open, obviously the distillery here opened last year, I believe. Yeah. When did that, well, you obviously, if you've been in the company 5 years, you'd obviously already been there, I presume, when the plans started coming together. Can you tell us about when the kind of conception of the idea started and what that process was like?
Yeah, I think probably one of the things we pride ourselves for at Loch Lomond as a group is our kind of the speed and ability to do things. Mm-hmm. You kind of from a concept to a plan to getting it up and running was relatively short. Opened mid-October. Ironically, the 1 week I was on holiday in Greece last which sad to miss it. But the spades didn't really go in the ground till about January. So the whole place, all the buildings you see, all the externals, everything. It was a fairly muddy paddock and one existing building. Mm-hmm. And then 8 months later, or 10 months later, it was a fully functioning visitor centre, distillery, and the rest of it. Wow. So it was a pretty quick process. Yeah. And that is all credit to the kind of wide team that worked on it. It was kind of running multiple work streams at similar times, and the first one to kick off is obviously, what's it going to be? It's an incredible space, incredible place. Although I'd say in comparison to most kind of visitor experience, it's quite a small space. Yeah, it's a small village, small town, small space within it. So we had to try and figure out a way to fit a lot into a small space. So we've got cafe facilities, we've got all the normal facilities you need for running visitor centres, bathrooms and all that sort of stuff. We've got a retail space, we've got a gin bar space, we've got a gin distillery, interactive experience, whiskey tasting room, and all that to fit in a site this size is quite a logistical challenge. Mm-hmm. But some good creative thinkers in it, some wonderful people through the architects and the designers and the contractors who helped us bring it all to life. And really the idea of it was to kind of, be very, very respectful of the surrounding area, of the kind of natural wonder that is in this place, of the history that's in this place, of the local residents who are very, very proud of their own little town, and rightly so. So it's had to be very respectful to the environment and our surroundings. But what we want to build was something that we could be proud of, they could be proud of, and it just allowed us to showcase Loch Lomond Whisky, give a home to Ben Lomond Gin, but also just created somewhere that, the hundreds upon thousands of tourists that pass through here can approach and go, I'd like to try that. I'm in Scotland, I'd like to try a drama, I'd like to try a Scottish gin, I'd like to try something. Not all these people who come here will necessarily be whisky or gin enthusiasts. Yeah. The vast majority of our audience are here for tourism. Mm-hmm. So creating an environment where people can learn a little bit, be excited by what we do, excited by our stories, and then be able to explore quite easily and without any real kind of fear or expectation they have to be an expert. That was quite important to us in bringing this place together.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in terms of what you said there. So obviously, first off, there's from January to October, as you say, 10 months to kind of turn the place around. Before that, in terms of planning and logistics, like how long was the process in terms of like obviously famously people have often difficulties getting the project off the ground, even if the building's quite quick.
I think we kind of obviously the whole of Luss is owned by Luss Estates, and we worked very collaboratively and closely with them to ensure that what we were going to bring to life, as I said, and being respectful to the surrounding area, would make that process relatively straightforward. Realistically, we were kind of up to putting spades in the ground. We're probably only 6 months of full-on project work, or mostly project work, to do that side of it. It was a remarkably fast project.
That's tremendous.
Some of the kind of agencies and people we worked with on it are experienced in building visitor centres and the rest of it, and they kind of looked at us with a slight chuckle to be like, "Are you serious?" type thing. And at that point, we were like, "We are. We believe we can do this, and we believe we can get up and running. We believe we can make it an incredible place and not miss out any of the kind of incredibly important design touches or incredibly important kind of well thought through experiences into that. It's like we don't want to skip any of that or skirt any of that, but we just want the process to be as quick as we can."
Yeah.
I think when we by and large managed that. Even down to some of the kind of even the furniture we're sitting in is all bespoke made. It was all a guy, Paul Hodgkiss, who's a kind of designer stroke architectural designer who put the chairs together. So these chairs are all different, all individual marks. All the woodwork there is all hand done in a workshop in Glasgow. Same with the tables, same with the beams and the rafters you see in all the buildings. This was, I guess one way to do a short timeline build is to buy a chunk of it prefab and just knock it up and hang pretty pictures on it. But also when we said we wanted to do it quickly, we wanted to do it with quality in mind and making sure that people got that rich, kind of enjoyable experience that they deserve. And I think that's the only way we can do service to the brands we've got and the liquors we've got is to make sure we didn't score on quality either.
Yeah, no, totally, and it is a really, really impressive setup. And you mentioned the kind of tourists passing through and that side of things. So I suppose like Loch Lomond, when people think of Scotland, it's up there as the kind of one of the most iconic locations. Kind of Luss maybe less so, but still a lot on a really prime location. You mentioned bringing Ben Lomond Gin here, which we can come back to in a second. How important was it for an iconic whiskey brand like yourselves, which is multi-award winning, that is so associated with the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs, to have that kind of brand home, that place to kind of bring people
I think it is. It's really, really important. I think we've always had this idea that nothing beats the feeling of being able to stand and share a dram with somebody who's either never had it before or already a fan. We do so much of that at the Open every year, when we have to wear a sponsorship there. And it's an absolute buzz for everyone that does it. So we don't necessarily employ kind of local sales staff or anything to come in and do it. We empty the offices, and everyone's standing behind a barrel pouring a dram or something. Is day to day they might be in commercial finance or procurement or MPD but we're the people we go in it, and everyone gets an absolute buzz out of that. So and you see the reaction of people when you get to talk and tell the stories of it, and you explain about Loch Lomond or Ben Lomond and talk about it. Some of the stuff that does make Loch Lomond so unique. Even some of the kind of simpler stuff that some whiskey people outside of the real kind of whiskey education world, being one of only a few that still have their own cooperage. The incredible variety of the kind of remarkable stills that we have and the types of spirit that we can produce as a distillery. Just being able to stand and talk to people and dish out a dram and share those stories is lovely. And that was kind of one of the big things, is like we didn't really have anywhere that we could do that. Our distillery is an incredible distillery, but over time, the way it's been built up, it's not particularly conducive to visitors. And therefore, having a home just allowed us to take that feeling, that sentiment, that joy we all got from that kind of week we do it at the Open, and be able to do it 52 weeks a year. And that was, I guess, that's the bit that kind of got everybody like this is worth doing, because we know what it's like when we do it. We just didn't get to do it often enough, and that was that was the bit that really gave us the buzz to do it.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And you mentioned the cooperage and the kind of main distillery there, but in terms of you've moved the gin production to this site, am I correct?
Yeah. So we actually produced the gin with a partner. Before, we didn't have the setup to be able to build the still properly at Alexandria. And it's always been our intention to bring that in-house. It was kind of, I guess, fortunate, maybe, in a way, that this site allowed us to do it in this close to Ben Lomond, where you can walk down the end of the pier, and today we'll actually see Ben Lomond because the clouds have disappeared. It's a beautiful day. So, being able to do it in the shadows of the mountain and kind of that close is kind of just lends more to the story and more to the piece of it. Realistically, we also wanted to do it because it allows us to, be a bit more fleet-footed of our innovation, a bit more fleet-footed in working with partners and that side of it. We, in spite, I guess, some of the doom and gloom around gin. The gin boom is. Everyone's told me the gin boom's done for 5 years, but I can't. And you see it in some of the numbers, but it's still an incredibly popular drink.
Yeah,
and people in that world want interesting, deliberately different, not just another iteration of the same thing that everyone else is doing. There's still an excitement for that. Our ability to do that and deliver that quicker and more in our own control is also a great thing for Ben Lomond.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I don't think gin's going nowhere. It's been around for long enough.
Yes.
But in terms of, I suppose, in terms of that rapid growth and how saturated the market was, that has kind of shifted a bit.
Yeah.
But it's a tremendous gin. In terms of it is, and I'm repeating myself, but it's a very impressive site. But as you say, it's quite a small footprint. In terms of what you've tried from the whiskey side of things, there's a visitor shop here, and that. Can you sort of maybe tell us a bit about sort of turning this into a kind of a home for Loch Lomond Whiskey, even if its production isn't
yeah,
here?
Sure. I think you got to look at it and say there's no way. I mean, we'd need to build the entire village of Luss again in size to accommodate a distillery that we have. It's impossible. You can't do it. But when you're faced with these challenges, you've just got to try and take the best bits about yourself, the bits that you think are different and more exciting, make them relatively simple and engaging for people to understand. Like I said, what we'll have through here is a lot of people who love whiskey who will come and visit. We've already had quite a few visitors come, people who have genuine interest, and we'll get a lot of passing tourism who maybe it's the first time they're in Scotland. Maybe it's the first time they tried a dram.
Yeah.
It's like you go on holiday, so you always try the local.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Those of us who work in the industry always try the local, right? You think about home the red. It doesn't matter what it is. I was in Greece and I love to remember the name of it, Spiros or something like that. Some local, slightly ouzo-ish style liqueur, and I was like straight in about that. My wife's sitting there going, Jesus, what's he on about? I was like, that's horrendous, but I'm going to. As it turned out, it was unaged brandy. That's what it was. I was like, but what you've got to do is kind of give that huge swathes of people who will be passing through here simple to understand, engaging, enjoyable, non-threatening entry point to whiskey. And that's what we try to create with the experience. It's free to go through the experience. You don't have to pay to go in. And I don't think there's many visitor experiences that are like that. And we'd certainly raise some eyebrows. A lot of people, they said, well, how much will it be to go through the experience? And I go, nothing. and folk kind of look at you and be like, well, how are you going to make any money out of it? I don't know. So that was kind of, at the heart of it was that, and I think Loch Lomond as a whiskey and as a brand lends itself to that. It's the variety of spirits that we can produce, the variety of finish we can produce on cooperage, means there's a lot to explore in Loch Lomond. And we've got some wonderfully, I say, kind of approachable stuff in our kind of 12-year-olds, particularly kind of Inchmore, the perfectly balanced, which I think is just a beautifully balanced kind of great kind of example of what the Loch Lomond style is. It's got that little bit of fruit, it's got that bit of honey, it's got that bit of smoke, none of which are overpowering, none of which are particularly dominant, but they're just very welcoming, very enjoyable. The whole range up to more complex stuff. So making sure we could get that starting point into it, that kind of enjoyable, welcoming, warm, you have nothing to lose by giving this a try type attitude, That was important to us, and I think that speaks to the brand and it speaks to some of the whiskey as well.
No, definitely. No, it definitely does. And in terms of the brand, for listeners who might be interested, at the start of 26 at the time of recording, you obviously do your open releases every year. Is there anything? Are you doing anything exclusive for the visitor centre here?
So we run a couple kind of exclusive casks for the distillery at any given time. So I think right now we've got a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old on just now. And I think we've got a wee Madeira cask coming up over the next few weeks once one of them runs out. So we do run a couple of kind of exclusive casks. Obviously everything we produce for Loch Lomond always points back to that kind of signature style. Yeah. And therefore, we're lucky enough to be able to kind of not pick and choose, but create some of the really interesting ones and bottle them up as single casks or kind of Luss exclusives that mean the people who are coming here, they can get something that is only available here. We do stock all the kind of limited editions and all the kind of annual releases and stuff that we do, even across Scotland and Scotia as well, for example. So we'll celebrate the festival edition here, that side of it. We'll do the open special editions, that side of it. But yeah, we've a rolling programme of usually kind of a couple of hundred bottles at a time of stuff that will be just exclusive to us. The only place you'll get it is by popping down and paying us a visit.
And in terms of the gin, is there anything exclusive here or anything exciting we should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think the guys will take you through a bit to some experience as well. We're just Chloe, who's our kind of gin distiller. She's busying creating. I think she's up to 52 now of about 75 to 80 single distillates. And what we plan to do here, probably into February when we open it, is there's a small blending room at the back of the distillery where people will go and be able to venture through the kind of varying flavour quadrants of gin. So one of the things we talk about Ben Lomond is, actually one of the things I think makes it an exceptional gin is it's a very, very robustly juniper based. It's got a big juniper punch at the start of it. And it's got another 6 botanicals that are, for want of a better phrase, fairly standard to gin, right? It's got some coriander seed in there, it's got some orange, some cassia, that sort of stuff. But what we deliberately did with it was then take the kind of 4 botanicals that really make it signature Ben Lomond, kind of give it a really nice balance between kind of a kind of crisp bitterness, comes from local rowan berries. So rowan berries are everywhere around here, and I'll come back to it, but quite a kind of large part in the folklore of the area and of adventure and travel and exploration. We use Scottish blackcurrants for sweetness, which kind of balance all kinds of bitterness. We use some Persian rose petals just to give that little floral hint, and we use Szechuan peppercorns to give a little bit of spice at the end. What we did is that gives us that, I guess, a wee bit of reflection of kind of how well balanced Loch Lomond Whisky is as well. It's a beautiful balance between bitter, sweet, floral, citrus, spice. And what will allow people to do then is, rather than spend a lot of time distilling their own one or with a wee still on the front of it, we've already done that. There's about 80 odd different botanicals split into those 4 quadrants. And you can start to explore, well, what do each of those botanicals do? And we'll teach people how then to blend their own gin. So when they come in, they'll come walk away through a class with our distiller Chloe, and she'll help them blend their own version of a kind of well-balanced, respecting all 4 quadrants of it. And that'll be the kind of some of the products that come out here.
Yeah, so like a gin school type thing.
A gin school type thing, just what we're trying to encourage in it is the exploration of how well balanced gin can be and how much can go into a gin. I think in reflection, when gin was overcrowded, oversaturated, it's because it was quite a formulaic take on it. It was kind of like, well, I'll just make my gin have this interesting botanical, I'll say it comes from here, and I'll serve it with another slice of fruit, right? Yeah. And that was just the formula everyone followed, right? And it was great because it allowed people to kind of play a wee bit of bartending and kind of bespoke their sir, this is the one with the grapefruit, or this is the one with the whatever, right? And that was a great way to engage consumers. It was wonderful. Kind of once everybody did it, and once you had 3,000 gins over doing it, it just became boring, right? And actually, what I think where gin's turning back to is its heart, its versatility is its biggest strength. The fact that it exists in probably more classic cocktails than any other spirit type shows its versatility. And actually, that's what Ben Lomond has at its heart. It's got a bit of fruit, it's got a bit of spice, it's got a bit of floral, it's got everything in it. And teaching people that message, and that they shouldn't be scared to then experiment with gin because it can stand up to different mixers, different cocktails and that side of it. That's the kind of core message and the core lesson of doing the gin school, not necessarily oh, you boil this to X degrees for X number of minutes. It's not about necessarily the production. It's about balancing flavour, being able to explore flavours, being able to create gins that lend themselves to different mixers, different cocktails, and different ways of drinking.
Yeah,
that's what makes gin great in my book, not just a formulaic gin tonic slice.
Yeah, no, totally. I suppose you mentioned the classic cocktails. I think Brandy might have a word for you there, but but it is a phenomenal spirit. But it must be from your point of view as a company a completely different, because obviously it's so. What's the right word for this? Because I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but compared to the strict regulations from the Scottish Whisky Association and everything like that around you even within that, you do amazing stuff at Alexandria in terms of, I think someone said to me, one of your colleagues a while ago, that it's the most different types of distillate that come out of any distillery in Scotland or something like that, 11 or 12 different types of spirits you produce down there, which is really impressive. Whereas I think one of the both most interesting things about gin, but also the challenges, is that lack of sort of consistent regulation and the idea of what can be bottled as a gin. So it's really interesting to see playing with that form as well. I think that do you find that gives you a bit more freedom?
It does give more freedom. I think you've got to be disciplined and apply your own standards to it. And I think by distilling ours as London Dries, that helps. I think there's a misconception in a way that gin's easy to make. I think the process is relatively straightforward, or certainly less time consuming and less capital intensive and all the rest of it than other spirits. But making really, really good gin, really well balanced, to a London Dry standard, leaves you nowhere to hide. You can't correct anything, you can't change anything. You're literally relying on your distiller's ability to put the right quality of ingredients into the right quality of spirit and to meticulously manage that through a still. Time again. And that's very, very difficult. So it doesn't necessarily have the regulation, but in some ways that forces you to apply to make sure you really put your own quality standards in there. Equally, I think, it's a hard one. I think in terms of being more adventurous or creating more new gins, you've just got to make sure you're doing something that is different, and that's the hard bit, right? I think I'd have to sit for days probably to try and imagine a flavour that somebody hasn't already made, for good or bad reason. I think when the gin was at its peak and you're even going to supermarkets and there's 3 bays worth of gin, and you're sitting there going, I don't want to pick anything about. It's too much, and there was every bizarre, weird flavour in the world in there that just gathered dust, and that I think that turned consumers off. We've done some nice pieces of innovation around it and some kind of nice adventurous stuff. We do one for the Open every year, actually, where we strip the kind of core of Ben Lomond back to its basics, and then we forage each of the golf courses for local botanicals, and we distill them into a gin. So the one you get at St Andrews is different to the one you get at Portrush, which is different to the one you get at Royal Liverpool, and every one then is a genuine taste of the venue that Open's being held at. And we'll make a few hundred bottles of each one of them, and we'll sell it at the course, and we'll sell it as a limited edition. And that to me is nice. That's given people who are golf fans and gin fans, of which there are a lot, something genuinely different, right? Something with a story to it, something interesting flavour to it, but something that's genuinely different. You can't just go through gin being like, I'm just going to put a different botanical in it because that makes it different. You've got to have a story to it. There's got to be a purpose to it. We've done some work with the John Muir Trust as well, where we used, they own a number of kind of lands around the UK and conserve them and look after the kind of natural protection of them. We did some work with them. We created one using some botanicals from Schiehallion. And, when we look at kind of the importance of people like John Muir and their kind of move to conservation, and the forefather of national parks, and our home sat right in the first national park that was ever in Scotland, sort of thing. There's important messages there about preserving the environment, about respecting the environment, about that. To me is good innovation and good gin. Not just chucking another botanical or a different flavour at it. I think that's like the stuff side of it. If you can think of genuine innovation, genuine reasons people will want something, and genuine reasons to give them an interesting set of botanicals or flavours, then that's important.
Yeah, no, definitely. 100%. Ali, thank you so much for your time. We'll come on to the last few questions we always ask everyone. In terms of if you were using either the whiskey or the gin in your own kind of serve at home, your kind of perfect serve, what would it be?
Tony will give you a whiskey one, so I'll give you a gin one, okay? If you take our blood orange and pink grapefruit gin, and you use our Champagne PF or Champagne brand, the Brut, a combination that makes an incredible French 75, or riff on a French 75.
Nice. No, that does sound very good. And if you're, let's stick with the gin. So, let's say hypothetically you were making some gins here yourself, and as part of this gin experience, what would be your playlist in the background, your soundtrack? What music is playing?
I think I'd hit my Spotify wrap on at that point. And the reason for that is my Spotify gets hijacked by my entire family, so I never quite know at the end of the year what they're going to be listening to as well, and it throws up this incredible variety of music, from nonsense that my 9-year-old will play in it through to my kind of 13-year-old who's getting into some of the music I liked in the 90s now, and my wife's love of Ed Sheeran and a few others. So you get an incredible variety of tunes through my Spotify Wrapped every year, and I think that would be a fair reflection of how I see gin.
No, that's in terms of the gin analogy, that's a very good answer. And either gin or whiskey, your go-to. What's the gin equivalent of a dram? No?
I think,
you're either dram or your favourite dram or serve that's not produced by the Loch Lomond Group. Okay,
I'll probably go dram then. I think I like a Glenfarclas.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Well, might be actually, I don't know if listeners know, but it might be the most common answer I'd say at this stage in the podcast. Yeah, fair play to Glenfarclas.
I probably had. It's maybe not necessarily a whiskey thing and a memory thing. I think I didn't really start getting into whiskey until my kind of late 20s, and on my 30th birthday, my brother bought me a bottle of Glenfarclas 30-year-old, and I remember tasting that, and it was probably the first time I tasted something that was, of a substantial age, and I was like, that's unbelievable. Yeah. So a memory thing, maybe more than a
well, I mean that's why why what other reason would there be to pick another brand? People have different reasons why they pick these things. So that works absolutely an excellent answer. So finally, your kind of earliest memory of whiskey.
Give you the friendly version. As I said, didn't really get into whiskey probably until my late 20s, early 30s, but first memory of drinking a whiskey and going, oh yeah, that's really good. I had a flatmate at uni from Orkney, and he had brought down a bottle of Scapa and a bottle of Highland Park. And probably, as much as it didn't maybe kick me into getting into whiskey, they're the first ones I tasted and I went, oh yeah, there's more to whiskey than I knew. Yeah. And that probably was my first memory of going, oh, this stuff is pretty special.
Oh, marvellous. Well, that's another great answer. Ali, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
No, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you for bringing us here to Luss, and we'll hopefully chat again soon. Thank you. Tony, thank you so much for joining us on the W Club Decanted. It's a pleasure to have you on. Brand home manager here at the Luss Distillery. First off, before we jump into your role here in the distillery itself, can you tell us a bit about your journey in the industry before this point?
Yeah, thanks. Great to have you here. Previous to about this time last year, actually, I came on board with Loch Lomond Group to take on this project, and sort of seen it come to fruition over the last sort of 12 months. Before that, I ran the visitor experience up at Oban Distillery for Diageo. I'm an Oban boy originally, so it was quite nice to go back there, and I ran the distillery experience there for a couple of years. And previous to that, a bit of a strange one, but I was an officer in the military for 10 years. So a bit of a strange career choice, but I think the whiskey and spirits industry has been incredibly welcoming, so been really good.
Marvellous. Oh, no, that's very different than our stories we usually hear on here. So that's quite the transition. So you came on here a year ago. Obviously, we were talking to your colleague Ali, which he was talking about how it's January last year that you really started building this place. So from your point of view, what was that experience like coming on board just as things were getting off the ground, I presume?
Yeah, I mean, a hugely complex project. It was one where a lot of the work, thankfully, the prep work had been done before I came. But I sort of came on board to buildings just about breaking ground and starting to take the shape that it has done today. The last year, pretty much from my end, has been obviously putting together the team that are going to deliver the experience now that we're here, and shaping the visitor experience and what that's going to look like. So it's been an incredible opportunity to be able to put my stamp on things and really sort of curate a visitor experience here that showcases everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of that visitor experience, can you maybe for anyone watching who's it's a beautiful place where we are here, and I highly recommend people visiting. But for anyone watching to kind of visualize the place, can you maybe tell us a bit about what happens here?
Yeah, so we're sat within a stunning conservation village on the west bank of Loch Lomond within the Trossachs National Park. Our distillery has been designed as to be in keeping with all of that, and it's quite a compact site. We don't take up a huge amount of space, but we've got a wide array of spaces that we can use to welcome visitors here, from a sort of free to explore discovery space where people can learn about our brands and get a bit of exposure to the variety that we've got, to our lovely whisky room that we're sat in at the moment. We've also got the functioning gin distillery as well, so people can go and do a tour or a tasting of that and see how we make our products.
You obviously got an amazing location here in Luss. You spoke to us there about the kind of the free gin experience. You've been open since October. We're now at the time of recording in January. So it's obviously a small sample size of operation. So in terms of this summer, you're going to obviously experience huge volume of tourists to the area. What are you expecting as your first summer as an active kind of visitor experience distillery?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging. I think we've got the interest already, and the site has been great. We've managed to welcome sort of several thousand people in the first few months through, some of which have been very deliberate visitors coming to see what we're doing here, but a lot of them have been sort of incidental, who are just maybe setting off on their tour around Scotland, or they're coming to the end and heading back to Glasgow to fly off somewhere. So we've got a real mix of people coming through, and I think looking forward to next summer. We know there's a large amount of footfall that comes through the area, and we've designed everything here to hopefully be able to cater to that. So everything from, as I said, the free experience where people can come through and get a bit of exposure to what Loch Lomond Group and Luss Distillery does, right through to some really curated whisky tastings and gin tours for groups of people. So hopefully, we're set, we're ready to welcome a big group of people, and really looking forward to the challenge.
Mm-hmm. No, it's exciting, and I imagine we were kind of speaking before we recorded. I hope people don't mind us breaking the fourth wall on this. Is that kind of what a stunning area it is, Luss, and so much to do here, from mountains to saunas to lakes. But I imagine you'll really clean up on those inevitably wet days as well.
Yeah, as blessed as we are with a beautiful day today, it's not always like that. I think if we'd been holding the interview yesterday, we would have been sort of darting for cover. But we're everything's under cover. We've been already working with a lot of the local businesses around the national park as that sort of wet day activity that they can keep in their back pocket to send their guests to us. And we've got a lovely site here where we can host people, and in the off season, we're going to be open all year round. So 7-day operation, 362 days of the year. I think it'll be a really good option for a lot of the people at Luss End. Weather's not so good.
No, definitely. And in terms of, you mentioned when you came on board and you were kind of building a team to kind of run the place, what kind of size of operation in terms of staffing do we have here? Because you've got the cafe, you've got the visitor experience, you've got the gin distillery.
I mean, I think throughout my career, I've been fortunate to sort of build teams and pick and choose what sort of skill sets we want and what the sort of numbers are going to be. So initially, we looked at getting in some people with a lot of experience in this sort of area. So I've got a couple of my team who have done the visitor experience side of things before, whether that be at other distilleries or Scotch Whisky Experience in Edinburgh. I've got a distiller on my team who's responsible for this end-to-end production of the gin at site. And then I've got a host of tour guides who we have sort of recruited from all walks of life, with really sort of great and infectious personalities that will be delivering the experiences day to day. The cafe kind of mirrors that from a numbers point of view. So on site, daily there can be sort of just into the double figures of us, and I think I'd imagine seeing that swell in the summertime, and over time as the operation here grows and the capacity fills up, then we've got the ability to scale the team up as necessary. So super exciting.
Yeah, no, big time. And we mentioned the kind of the attractive nature of the location, Scotland in miniature, I think was the phrase you used. In terms of operating within a national park, from an environmental point of view and from a kind of a logistical point of view, are there challenges to that?
There are challenges, and I think we're well serviced by the local transport. It's we're an easy place to get to, and I think we are from a sustainability point of view, it's really been at the heart of the project from the outset. A lot of the build was done using sustainable materials and wood that we'd repurposed from elsewhere. We've got our solar panels on the roof, which help to supplement from the power point of view, and I think we're really trying to just be a good neighbour to the village and the area. We're very in tune with the local community. We support a lot of local events, and I think it's very difficult it could be very difficult to plan a brand new visitor experience right in the middle of a small village, but we've been really well received, and we continue to work closely with them, so it's been really good.
And in terms of people visiting Luss, if people are watching this and they want to come and visit the distillery, what other activities in the area would you recommend? Any good bars or things you'd recommend doing after they've done the experience?
Yeah, so I've got one maybe before the experience. So we work very closely with a lot of the other businesses around the loch. There's a 4x4 driving experience where you can go out before, yeah. But likewise, a lot of the cruise companies on the loch as well, where you can go out and see some of the islands, some of which we've got whiskey named after. You can go out, maybe have a tasting on the water before coming to do a tour with us. And I think about a stone's throw just over the way is the Loch Lomond Arms, which is our sort of effectively our local pub just across the way. So plenty to do.
I think I had a good Sunday roast there once. It's a nice spot.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. We'll kind of come to the fun part of the chat. In terms of yourself, if you were at home having either the gin or whiskey, what would your kind of perfect serve be in terms of a cocktail?
Yeah, so on the gin front, I love a gimlet. It's probably my go-to cocktail. So probably some nice Ben Lomond original with some little bit of lime. Not too much, but that'll do me.
Yeah,
for
good
that.
shout. Keep the scurvy away.
Yeah, on the whiskey front, really enjoying. We've got a Loch Lomond 16 at the moment, which is finished in cognac barrels. So it just kind of warms you from the inside out.
Is that the Falls of Falloch?
Falls of Falloch, yeah.
What a dram. Launched exclusively with the whiskey shop, folks. That's another good answer. And in terms of if you were like opening up the distillery here or working away in your day to day, and you were to set that to a soundtrack or have something playing in your headphones, what would your go-to album be, or artist or playlist?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up on the west coast of Scotland, I was very fortunate to be involved with the traditional Scottish music scene. So probably something along the lines of that. One of the bands from there.
Marvellous. Oh, another good answer. In terms of brands that aren't part of the Loch Lomond group, whiskey-wise, what's your favourite brand?
I like my Smoky PT whiskies. So I've got a couple of big events happening later this year, and I've got a little stash of Lagavulin tucked away for then. Nice.
From your days at Oban, was it?
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Brilliant. I suppose finally your earliest memory of drinking whiskey or just whiskey in general.
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough that whiskey has sort of been a nice little thread through most of my career. I think earliest memories in the military were using it to sort of host whiskey tastings and break down barriers with different nationalities and use it to sort of make friends. So yeah, I remember very, very fond memories with a bottle of Oban whiskey back in the early days. Just sharing it with others.
Yeah, would that count as grog? Or
I wouldn't say so. No.
Marvelous, Tony. Thank you so much for hosting us here at Luss. It's an amazing experience. I highly recommend anyone listening to join and come visit. Brilliant. It's been tremendous. So hopefully see you again soon.
That's it. Thanks very much.